Hi, Paul Sackis, Good News Planet. I'm speaking to Dr. Mark Underwood. Hi, Dr. Underwood. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Paul.
Great. You're the chief pediatric neonatologist. Do I say that right?
Yeah, neonatology. That's the study of premature and sick newborns.
Okay, UC Davis. That's California. Are you headquartered in Sacramento?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, great. All right, great. A great group of universities in California, and we're going to talk about babies today and what's happening. Like 9 out of 10 babies that they're missing. That's a new study reveals how to fill a vital gap in the infant gut, GUT, health. Is that they call the stomach? Is the gut and the stomach equal?
No, the gut includes the stomach plus the small intestine and the large intestine.
Okay. And so, what is the baby missing, or what are we learning now that might be different than before, or do we just know new research?
I think some of both. Yeah, I think some of both. So what we've found is that over the last 100 or so years, the number of healthy bacteria that live in the intestines of babies has gone down, particularly in developed countries. So we've been focusing on a particular bacteria. It has a long name. It's called Bifidobacterium infantis. And in developed countries, including the U.S., babies have fewer and fewer of these bacteria over the last 100 years or so, whereas in developing countries, the healthy babies still have lots of this bacteria in their intestinal tract.
Okay. And it's good and it's bad, or what's the significance?
Yeah, so we seem to be seeing, we as a large scientific community, that loss of healthy bacteria in the intestines predisposes or increases risk of a variety of diseases. So the reason this is important is if you lose the good bacteria, especially early in life, your risk of developing things like diabetes and obesity and allergies and asthma and Crohn's disease and other long-term diseases of children and adults goes up. So it appears that the composition of the bacteria in your intestines, particularly in the first months and years of life, is very important in shaping how our immune system reacts and responds. The exciting thing about this study that we just did at UC Davis, it was just published last week. It was a study that I led where we randomly assigned healthy term babies who were all breastfed to either receive a particular probiotic. A probiotic is a dietary supplement that contains healthy bacteria, or no probiotic, and then we watched them over the first year of life. And the probiotic that we used is this one that we know has been decreasing in the population, and it's an interesting bacteria because it thrives in the presence of human milk, in mom's milk. And the exciting thing about this study was that the babies who got the probiotic became colonized with these healthy bacteria. That wasn't a big surprise. Probiotics have been around for 100 years or so. The surprising and exciting thing was that when we stopped giving the probiotics, as long as these babies were still receiving mom's milk, they had large numbers of these bacteria, even weeks and months later, in their intestines. Previous studies of probiotics have found that you could give them and you might have a short-term impact, but as soon as you stop giving the probiotic, then the good bacteria went away again. In this study, we found really for the first time that we could change the composition of this community of bacteria in the gut and have that change last for a long, long time after we stopped giving the probiotic.
So is this some continuance of breastfeeding is a wise thing to do, or are there ups and downs in that regard as well?
Yeah, so these babies, as I mentioned, were all breastfed, and as long as the moms were continuing to breastfeed, these healthy bacteria thrived. So you could think of it as we gave in that first, we only gave the probiotic for 3 weeks, from day of life 7 to day of life 28, and then we stopped the probiotic but continued having the moms breastfeed as long as the moms wanted to, and as long as they were breastfeeding, these healthy bacteria were thriving.
So are we saying then that if a mom doesn't breastfeed, this is wise to do?
Well, I think it's always beneficial to breastfeed. For moms who can't breastfeed, this study didn't really focus on formula-fed babies, but, the idea would be to do the same kind of a study in the future and see if there's a way that we can establish healthy communities in those formula-fed babies as well.
So probiotics, we have spoken to people over the years about this, and I take a probiotic. I can't say that I'm not a little bit confused on which probiotics to take. They all seem to have 10 billion of something.
Yeah.
What is that 10 billion of what? What are they telling me when I look at the probiotic?
When you read that label, it's telling you the name of the bacteria that they put in the product and how many of those bacteria are in the capsule or the liquid or however you take it. And you're right, there's a lot of different strains. So these billions and millions just tell you how many different bacteria are in the product. The part that was unique about this study is, and it's really different from all the other probiotic studies that are out there, was the idea of combining both the healthy bacteria, which is the probiotic, plus a food for those bacteria. So it turns out human milk contains substances that this particular bacteria, this particular probiotic, just loves and thrives in. So that allows these good bacteria to outcompete all of the bad bacteria. So what we saw was those babies who got the probiotic, they had a marked decrease in the number of bad bacteria and a really strong increase in the number of good bacteria, and that persisted long term. Maybe the example I could give is among this group of babies were several babies that had to be born by cesarean section, and we know that C-section impacts this community of bacteria in the intestinal tract in a negative fashion. And what we saw was these babies who got this probiotic plus breast milk, after a very short time, after a week or two of the probiotic, you couldn't tell the difference between the breastfed vaginally born babies and the breastfed C-section babies if they were getting the probiotic. If they didn't, that marked difference between C-section and vaginal continued and hung on for weeks and months.
There's another couple words that are out there is alkaline and acidic. Does that have any bearing on the gut? And does it have any bearing on a little baby?
It does, yeah. It turns out that the healthy bacteria that we want to grow in a baby's stomach, they create a little bit of an acidic environment in the intestine, particularly the colon. So that's the part, sort of downstream in the intestine. And so if that environment is a little bit on the acidic side, the good bacteria thrive, the bad bacteria don't do as well, and it seems to provide actually sort of a food source for the cells that line the colon. So these are the baby's cells that love that mildly acidic environment. And so in this study, we measured the pH in the poop, in the messy diaper, and what we found was the babies who got the probiotic, they were a little bit more acidic, which is just what we want.
Let me ask you. Let's take, if you don't mind, take the thinking here and go further. Because actually, I had diverticulitis. My colon broke, and as an adult, a big baby, and there are similar concerns, or similar opportunities available for somebody now 10 months or older.
Yeah, I think that's really the key question. So this study really was focused on babies. And, babies have some advantages. They start out with a very simple community of bacteria, and it develops over time. And that happens at a time when our immune system is developing as well. So if a baby has a lot of pathogenic or bad bacteria early in life, the risk of a whole bunch of diseases, including Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, seems to go up. your question about can we make a big change in the adult, we didn't really address that in this study, but it's harder to change the microbiota. That's the word we use to describe the community of bacteria in our guts. It's harder to change in an adult for a long term. I haven't seen any papers so far where people were able to successfully reshape the composition of that community in an adult like we saw in the baby. In previous studies in babies, that hasn't happened either. This really is sort of an exciting study because we've shown that we can change that community in a positive fashion and have it persist for weeks and months.
So, how does a parent proceed then with their baby? After is this a continued checkup? What are some of the things that a parent would do if they found out that that whole gut scenario was not so good? What can they do?
Yeah. Well, I think breastfeeding is really important and helpful. So if a mom can breastfeed and continue for as long as she and the baby both want to, that's a great thing. In addition, I think a question that parents really are struggling with and that pediatricians are struggling with as well and other healthcare professionals is there a way we can impact this intestinal community early in life and have it make a long-term difference? And, the question there would be, can we give a probiotic to a baby early in life to prevent these problems? And I think this study suggests that we can, and really it's been the first and most promising study to say that this looks like a good idea. I would suggest to parents talking with their doctor about the advantages of probiotics. There's a website that describes this study if parents are interested. It's at a place called evolvebiosystems.com. So if families are interested in looking at more detail at the study, they can find it there.
Give me that website again, Doctor,
sure,
if you don't mind.
It's evolvebiosystems, all one word, .com.
evolvebiosystems.com. Do I have that right?
Yeah, the evolve part is EVOLVE, and then biosystems.
Yes. Okay. So, breastfeeding doesn't occur forever, though. It's even though some of us would like it, but the point is it's a short-term concept. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
how long
right.
does somebody, a year and a half, how long do people breastfeed?
It varies quite a bit based on the mom, based on the baby. But I think what these data show is that a mom doesn't have to breastfeed forever. She can continue to breastfeed for the first months of life. We followed these babies up for a year, so these babies were mostly breastfed up to a year, and we still saw benefit as they went along. I think the important thing for parents to realize is they don't have to stay on a probiotic or on breast milk forever. The most important time to have this impact is really in the first months of life when the immune system is still developing.
Well, isn't it what I mean? And thank you for your research study here. You're coming up with important information for all the pediatricians of the world. Not only this is not just an American baby story. This is a worldwide story. Correct?
Yeah, it is. It's a very exciting story, and hopefully over the years to come we'll have even better news.
Okay. And what I also like is the fact is that you're really putting a lot of attention to the little baby. Then hopefully you'll maybe follow some of those little babies in a later life and see how they're probiotic, they're alkaline and acidic, and they're all those gut factors. Would that be a helpful kind of thing? Now at 9 years old, you look back and see their gut scenario. You think?
Yes, I think that's exactly right. Following these babies and future babies and more studies along will answer some really exciting key questions, like if we can reshape the microbiota in early life, does that really translate into lower numbers of children and adults with these diseases that seem to be related to the intestinal bacteria?
All I know is I also took a GI test on Friday, and that room was packed with people taking the GI test. So
it's a big deal.
Something is off here. How many, and it usually I think comes down to, at least I'm telling you, I go back to my the results and things. Is it seems to me that this word food, this thing you put in your mouth, and that you somehow digest or don't digest, or you think you digest, seems to be a concern. Because you're talking about milk from a mother. And then everybody else is talking to me about eating meat and kale and this and vegetarian. I don't do eat this. I'm quite confused at this moment what to do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for what you're doing. Let me ask you two last quick questions,
sure.
Dr. Underwood, and congratulations on the research, and I'm sure it'll be extremely helpful for many. I ask everybody, what's good news for them? So what would be good news for you, Dr. Underwood?
I think the good news from my standpoint is this really hopeful result that we may be able to change some really disturbing trends. There are quite a few diseases that are related to dysbiosis that are dramatically on the rise over the last 50 years, and we really haven't been able to slow that down. And these changes in the gut microbiota early in life offer us hope that maybe we can turn that around.
Beautiful. I'm going to ask you one last question. We've asked many people. We're very involved with the International Day of Peace at the UN in September, and I've asked thousands of people, what does peace mean to them? So, Dr. Underwood, what does peace mean to you, if you don't mind?
What a great question. Peace to me means being able to pursue your dreams without fear. I think that's it.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a big one. No doubt about it. Okay. Well, thank you very much. A very important work, and continue on. Your school is part of the University of California school system, and
that's right.
I guess gets sponsored and through California, and outside hopefully some help too to keep you guys studying and doing more great work like this. Thank you very much, Dr. Underwood.
You bet. Nice to talk to you, Paul. Thanks.
Nice speaking with you too. Bye-bye.